Thank you very much for that. And yes, welcome this morning. We're here this morning to have a look at International A-Level Modern Foreign Languages from Pearson. And the event today is about getting ready to teach. So we take you through everything you need to know to get ready and kind of going from the basics of the event. We've gotten a 3-hour time slot this morning. But as we go through, we will hope to sort of wrap up in about 2.5 hours, and we'll allow some time for discussion or questions and so on at the end of the session. I'm presenting on my own this morning, so forgive me if you're using the chat function to ask questions and so on and so forth. If I don't see them as we go along, no problem. We'll allow you some opportunity to answer those, to kind of get those questions answered at the end. But as we go through, I'll mainly just present the information to you. But please, if a question has sort of appears, I'm not ignoring you. It's just that I probably won't have seen it until we come to do some questions and answers at the end. So we'll just sort of welcome you really to this professional development training from Pearson this morning. It's really designed for teachers who are teaching and looking to teach the International A-Level Modern Foreign Languages specifications from Pearson. And you will all have come from kind of different teaching backgrounds. Some of you may have come from a different international qualification. Others may have used the English qualifications for A-level, and there are some differences there as well. So we'll take you through everything you need to know about this international qualification in the session today. So the idea really is to just talk about how the qualification is devised. We're going to have a look at the content of the qualification. We're going to explore how you might plan the course and think about the lessons. And then really the key things about understanding the assessment of the qualification and how you prepare the students, understanding the question types, the mark schemes, and also we'll talk to you about some support that's available to you from Pearson. We'll have a look at the mark schemes. The focus is not primarily on marking for this session today, but of course, just for those of you who are from outside the UK and outside the British system, the transparency is a key feature. And so we publish a specification that tells you what the content of the course is and what you need to teach, what the topics are. We publish sample assessment materials, which are an almost guarantee of the format of the test, of the question types, the level of demand. And we also publish mark schemes that show you how we mark the exams once the students have done them. So all of that's available to you. It's also available to your students to look at on the website. So we'd just be sort of interested to know, I will sort of kind of let you use the chat now, but we'd just be interested to put a yes or a no on a scale of 1 to 10 in the chat. So have you prepared students for the Pearson Edexcel International French, Spanish or German A-level before? So have you done it in the past? And how familiar are you with it on a sort of scale of 1 to 10? So we'll just get you just to pop into the chat your kind of responses to that, if that's useful. Okay. Okay, so we've got some yeses and so a kind of bit of a range of response there. Okay, that's useful. Okay. But also quite a lot of familiarity. That's really useful. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay, good. Well, we'll move on and we'll just sort of do the little kind of welcome to Pearson, because I suppose for the people who aren't familiar with it and maybe haven't worked with Pearson before, we just say a little bit about who we are as an awarding organisation. So I suppose we can say as well that we are the UK's largest awarding organisation. So we're very much placed to offer these qualifications, which are aligned to the British educational system. We have international heritage that goes back, the business goes back over 150 years. So Pearson's a very well-established organisation. And we partner with schools, university employers worldwide, offering globally recognised qualifications to over 3.5 million students each year. And in numbers, well, 6,500 is the number of schools and colleges that we partner with globally. We mark 10 million exam scripts on behalf of the UK Department for Education each year, and also operate in 70 countries worldwide. And some of you will be in some of those countries this morning, I expect. Now, we're going to just sort of have a look now at the international A-level specification. So it's just important, I think, to understand that the executive summary for the international A-level, that it's a qualification that's considered against benchmarks to match very closely with the UK A-level in terms of its level of demand. And so in terms of kind of talking to your students about this, although it's called an international A-level, you're doing something which has the same level of validity, if you like, as the UK A-level. So in terms of kind of entrance to UK universities, universities in the United Kingdom, then it is an A-level which is highly valid and has been benchmarked against the national qualifications. So we'll also just mention too that you see there on the right-hand side of the screen the specification. So the specification is always your key document. But in terms of the general features, it's reviewed in the light of GCSE A-level changes, so it matches with the A-level. It's developed to Pearson's world-class qualification standards. It is a specification that develops cognitive skills in problem solving and critical thinking as well. So it isn't all fact-based. There are thinking skills required. We hope that the content is relevant and engaging for your students. There are transferable skills embedded as well into these qualifications. So it also enables then progression to undergraduate courses. There are dedicated online resource packs as well. We'll talk to you a little bit about that at the end of the session today. And we also offer some support and training. Well, you're here for one part of that this morning. And we also offer some specific training if you haven't done it for conducting the speaking test. We ran one of those yesterday, but those training events will appear at various points throughout the academic year. So if you haven't done one of those already, it's very useful to make sure that you've kind of spent that slot just to make sure that you're getting those things right for your students. Now, the specification itself is a unitized specification. So units 1 and 2 are the international advanced subsidiary. And so it's possible to do in this system a sort of half an A-level. You can do just an advanced subsidiary. You can just do an AS qualification, and units 1 and 2 are based on AS, and then units 3 and 4 are A-level. So in order to complete the A-level, students have to do all 4 units, but you can have a qualification after doing the 2. So it's quite common, but it's not an absolute requirement for students to take units 1 and 2 at the end of the first year of the course and 3 and 4 at the end of the second year of the course. And all of those units are available in both January and June every year. And students can also retake individual units. So actually they do what they're ready to do when they are ready to do it. All of the units, however, are they're assessed by in the centres, so the students do the exams in the centres, but they're all marked externally by Pearson. And it's you as the student's teacher that conducts the speaking test. So just sort of taking you through, and we'll have a look in greater depth and detail as we go through the session this morning. Unit 1 is International A-Level AS Speaking. Unit 2 is Listening, Reading and Writing. And then Unit 3 is A-Level Speaking. And Unit 4 is Listening, Reading and Writing. And different levels of format and demand in those papers. Now, we're just going to talk to you a little bit about the content and the topic areas, and these are really the things that you will need to be preparing your students to deal with. And we divide those topic areas into topic areas which are general topic areas for units 1 and 2. So those are youth matters, lifestyle, health and fitness, environment and travel, and education and employment. So the content of the speaking cards that they deal with when they do the Unit 1 speaking exam, and the content of the paper that they deal with for Unit 2 will all be drawn from those general topic areas. And there is also something important to say about the word general, because these general topic areas don't need specific examples from the target language speaking world. So we can talk about environment and travel in the context of anywhere. And this is a little bit different when we get into the A-level topics, which we'll look at as we go through. So our general topic areas, so this is kind of a beginning really for you to sort of think about how you plan your teaching, how you plan your delivery and the vocabulary that you're going to teach, and so on and so forth. Youth Matters covers family relationships and friendships, peer pressure and role models, music and fashion, and technology and communication. Lifestyle, health and fitness covers food and diet, sport and exercise, health issues, urban and rural life. Topic area 3 is environment and travel. So that covers tourism, travel and transport, types of natural disasters and weather, climate change and its impact, energy, pollution and recycling. And general topic area 4 covers education and employment, education systems and schooling, pupil and student life, volunteering and internships, and jobs and employment. Okay, so those are the general topic areas that should inform the planning of your delivery of the course. And I'll just say again that there is no need for those to be studied in any particular country context. Okay, so they're purely about the language. We're not looking for students to have specifically studied those in the context of France, Spain, or Germany. Although it might make sense that you do, and that's something that you're likely to want to do. It's absolutely fine that those are general topic areas. So that word "general" is significant there. So if we start and have a look through the format of the exams then. So Unit 1, the International A-Level Speaking Test, it's a 10-minute test, but candidates have some time to prepare a card. So the teacher examiner asks the candidate 4 set questions, and that's based on the text on a stimulus card that the students have prepared for 15 minutes in advance of the exam. I think it's just important again to say that we have to rely on you as teachers to conduct this test correctly and appropriately. So obviously read all of the information, have a look at all of the things on the website and in the specification, the sample assessments and also the past papers to give you a guide as to how that test works. But we would always recommend that any teacher who's conducting the speaking test attends one of our training sessions, because obviously your conduct of the test affects the outcome for the students. So section A is that 4 questions on a card, and section B is a discussion on the same general topic area. So we saw those subtopics. Each of the cards will be set within one of the subtopics, and then you discuss the same general topic area for the first part of section B, and then the discussion moves away from the main focus of the stimulus on the card to cover other subtopics of the general topic area. Let's just look back at those. So if we just take an example, general topic area 2, if the card is about food and diet, we ask the 4 questions on the card related to food and diet, and then you develop the conversation on, and it could be on health issues or rural and urban life, etc. So we stay within the general topic area for that unit 1. Okay. And then international AS unit 2. It's listening, reading and writing. It's a listening, reading and writing paper. So section A is listening comprehension, and section B is reading comprehension and grammar, and section C is writing. And again, we can have a look at those things as we sort of move through the presentation today. That is the format of the test. It's important, I think, to say as well that everything that is tested for comprehension on that part of the test, all of the information is in the text or in the audio that the students are dealing with. So they don't need to bring any specific knowledge to this test for the section A and section B. The comprehension, all of the information is in the text, but what they do bring is the study of those general topic areas, because the likely vocabulary, for example, that they're going to have studied under a particular general topic area will be included there. So just taking you through the different parts of the unit 2. So in section A, which is listening, students have their own recording of the listening material, and they can listen to it as many times as they like. So it's not like a GCSE test where the test is played to them. They have their own recording on their own recording on their own device, and they can listen backwards and forwards as many times as they like in time. In section B, students respond to written texts. So that, as we kind of understand, is sort of the reading comprehension format. And listening and reading comprehension, both section A, section B, can be tested through multiple choice questions, gap fill questions, and short answer questions where they have to answer in the target language. So it's worth just mentioning for those of you who may be new to Pearson, I talked a bit about the transparency at the beginning of the session. So each year, for example, whatever question the format of question 5 is, will be the same format every year. So the students, in terms of the kind of developing the thinking skills that we're wanting those students to develop, you can develop with them strategies for answering a particular question type, with the knowledge that that question type will always be the same question type in the same place on the paper. And I do know that sometimes other awarding organizations will vary the question types and that sort of thing. But one of the things that we believe we offer is that consistency, so that the students, when they sit down in that exam room to do that exam, will know the format of each question and will therefore have practiced with you the strategies that they need to use to deal with that question. And of course, when we talk about those strategies, well, it's sometimes with, for example, with a multiple choice question, the strategy is not just to find the right answer, but to consciously eliminate the other options and so on. So whatever strategies you've taught them, they will be able to apply them and they'll know where to apply them. Question 8 in section B it is a grammar test, and it tests students' knowledge of grammar and structures. So there's a list of the grammar the students are expected to know, and that's found in the specification. So they're guided again in terms of what it is that is likely to be tested in that grammar question, question 8. Do have a look at some of the past papers if you're not so familiar with the specification, and you'll start to see how that question works. Now, in section C, writing, students need to write a structured essay responding to a short text based on one of the general topic areas, and then some bullet points are provided for them to guide them as to what they need to write. Okay, so that's really the format of the 2 AS units: a speaking unit, unit 1, with a card that and 4 questions and a discussion, and then unit 2, listening, reading and writing. Listening, where they have control of their own recording; reading, comprehension and grammar, so reading comprehension, and then the question 8 is always going to be the grammar section. And section C is the writing section, which is supported by some bullet points that are kind of given for them to follow. Okay, so that's the first 2 units. And as I mentioned, as a unitized qualification, you could stop there. You could cash those in and have an AS qualification. We move on now just to thinking about the international A2, and of course we put AS and A2 together, and then we have A level. So obviously this is into the second year of study for our students, and so we're picking up, if you like, the level of demand that we might be dealing with. And we're also doing something else, which is that when we get to international A-level A2, we are locating what we're doing and what we're saying in the target language countries or communities in the French, Spanish or German speaking world. So this is an important distinction. And I think it's important that you are absolutely clear about this, because we need you to be absolutely sure that this is what's happening in your classes. So where the students maybe give examples in their speaking or writing for AS that could come from anywhere in the world, could come from their own home countries, that's fine. But when we're getting into the international A-level A2 specification, part of the specification, we need those examples to come from the French, Spanish or German speaking world. Okay, and that hold that thought now in your heads, because that's really very important. Anyway, look, let's have a look at the general topic areas for 5, 6 and 7. So they are technology in the French, German or Spanish speaking world. So that's scientific advances, technological innovations, and the impact on life and environment. Society in the French, Spanish or German speaking world. So we cover migration, equality, politics, and customs. And ethics in the French, Spanish and German speaking world. So we cover beliefs, law and order, and moral issues. And so things like euthanasia, adoption, genetic modification. Okay. Now, within those general topic areas, of course, we are expecting students to at times speak about those, when we'll have a look in a moment at the speaking test. But within the speaking test, we won't always know, there isn't a set list of things that we might want you to study. So what they need is some specific case studies that you know that you've talked to them about. And so you talk about things like customs. Well, you might have taught them about certain customs, And then you are going to ask in a discussion that is controlled by you, you're going to ask them to evidence the things that they know about customs. But nothing in the speaking test will catch them out if there is a lack of specific knowledge about a particular custom or about a particular political party, etc. The one little kind of caution that I think I would just sort of give to you is just on that general topic area 5, technology. Do make sure that the examples that your students are using come very specifically from the French, Spanish, or German-speaking world, because it's very easy for those things to be kind of global, but actually we're not doing global here. We need scientific advances in the Spanish-speaking world, for example, or their impact in the Spanish-speaking world, or technological innovations in Germany or in Austria, in the German-speaking world, etc. So try to make sure that you've located those things there. I think the other thing that's quite important for teaching and planning the course for International A-Level is just to understand that your students are quite young. And so there will be things here, there will be issues where actually you will also need to teach the little bit of information that's necessary to understand the issue itself. So remember that the level of general knowledge and world knowledge that they have will be that of an 18-year-old without necessarily the adult mind, although these are quite grown-up topics. And you see the difference, don't you, between what we saw at AS and what we're seeing at A2. Let's have a look now at the various parts of the test then. So Unit 3 for International A-Level is the speaking test, and it's an 11 to 13 minute test, and it's in 2 sections. So Section A is a presentation and a debate on an issue that's chosen by the student. So this issue can be anything. They can be anything where there's an element of contention, where there's something to debate and discuss. Your student can choose that issue. They present their issue. They set out their issue, and their issue is based on some reading and research that they've done. They set out that issue for a minute, and then you debate that issue with them. So obviously important that, you know, and we when we run the training for the conducting the speaking exam, we talk to you about the importance of making sure that the student has an issue that isn't descriptive. It's an issue. It's something where there's a question of debate, and then you will gently debate that issue with them, question them on their particular stance on that issue. And then in Section B, the student discusses 2 further issues. Now, those issues can come from any of the general topic areas. So they could come from the AS, or they could come from the A2 topic areas, but 2 further issues. And those general topic areas that you discuss, remember, of course, if you're discussing something from the general topic area, which are the A-level, the A2 general topic areas, it needs to be exemplified and located in the French, Spanish, or German-speaking world. Oh, and I suppose I should just mention that the test is 11 to 13 minutes long for the International A-level A2, but unlike the AS needs a room for them to prepare in, because they prepare a card. Here they just arrive, so we don't have any need for any preparation space for International A-level A2 speaking. Now, Unit 4 then is listening, reading, and writing. So this is a 2.5 hour examination. In Section A, students do a listening test, and again they have access to their own recording of the listening material. They can listen to it as many times as they like. In section B, students respond to written texts, and as they respond to written texts, they are doing, as indeed with the listening, multiple choice, gap fill, short answer questions, and again, everything in the target language. All of the questions are in the target language. All of their short responses must also be in the target language. There's no need for them to answer in full sentences when they are either here or indeed on the unit 2 when they answer. So the shortest possible answer, and those answers are not marked either for the quality of their written French, Spanish, or German. So provided we can understand their answer and it's an answer in French, Spanish, or German appropriate to the exam, they will get the mark. We're only looking for evidence of comprehension. Question 8 is a grammar test, and it tests the student's knowledge of grammar and structures. And again, we've got that list of grammar that's in the specification. Now, in section C, students answer one question from a choice of 2 that relates to a topic, a literary text, or a film chosen from the prescribed list. So look in the specification, you'll see a list of topics, literary texts, and films. And the prescribed list of topics, texts, and films is there in the spec for you. And in preparation for this part of the exam, students need to study one topic or one text or one film. So we're only looking for one of those, but they have some optionality there. Mostly teachers will choose one book or one film or something, and you do that as a class project. But there's no requirement for all the students in your class to do the same one. But normally it's a taught part of the course, and so usually it works for you to kind of do it that way. But you know, sometimes in centres you have students who are taught outside the centre or whatever. Maybe sometimes classes split between 2 teachers and so on. So there's no requirement for them all to do the same one within your particular school. And 2 questions each time are set on each topic, so they can choose which of the 2 that they'd like to answer. So although on the exam paper there's a choice of topics, most of them will have studied one topic or one text or one film, but when they get into the exam they do choose which of the 2 questions they prefer. Okay, so let's just have a think a little bit about planning the course and the sort of essential documents and the things that you might want to make sure that you've found. So you need to plan very carefully and just make sure that the topics will have covered all the prescribed topics and grammar, and that they've had adequate time as well to practice exam questions by the time of the exam. You're free to use that. There are resource packs available from Pearson. We'll talk about that later on. But you're free to choose any kind of materials that support the qualification. And now at this point in the qualification, there are lots and lots and lots of past papers available on the website. So actually, those are quite often the almost they're almost constituting a course now in terms of the material that we have available. Remember too that although it's not quite the same, there are lots of A-level papers for the Pearson UK qualification available, and so actually working with those can be quite a good resource now at this point in the specification itself. So just remember that the International A-level requires students to take 2 International AS level exams, units 1 and 2, and 2 International A2 exams, so that's units 3 and 4. And usually it's taught over 2 years with the AS material in the first year and the A-level material in the second. And normally in those cases, they do the AS units at the end of the first year, and the A level at the end of the second. But that's not compulsory. You can plan those things however you'd like to do them, and they can resit and so on if they want to. So it's a unitized qualification. On the subject web pages on the website, there are also some model schemes of work, and you can download those as well. So those are kind of a useful guide really to organizing your teaching. And they're kind of designed to be a starting point, but they're based on about 5 hours a week of teaching, or 10 hours per fortnight across timetables if you're using that sort of 2-week timetable in your school. And the scheme of work really is based on an assumption that the international A level comprises of 35 teaching weeks, so 175 hours in each year. And provision is made then for revision and so on within that. Okay, so that's in terms of kind of your timetable load, that's sort of what we're looking at. And so in total, about 360 learning hours are what we should be looking at. So it's quite a good idea just as well to check your curriculum provision, you know, to check your teaching hours, and add that up over the course of the year, just to see that you have sufficient time allocated to you to deliver the course as it is designed. So 350 to 360 hours really over the 2 years is sort of what we would be looking at. Some of that, of course, may be independent study by your students as well, but that's what we should plan for. When you are teaching the specification, I think it's important always to remember that the official documents really are the specification, the sample assessment materials, and also the past papers. And so any support materials that you might purchase or buy, or textbooks or things that you might use, are designed to support the specification, and yes, they will do that. But the actual specification, the actual technical information, the letter of the law, if you like, is the things that are published in those specifications, sample assessment materials, and past papers. Okay. Now, let's just sort of move on, and I want to just talk to you about the choice of set topic, literary text or film. So for Unit 4 then, students do need to study a topic, a literary text or a film. And that list of prescribed topics, texts or films in the specification is there in each language. And it's essential really that only a topic, text or film from that list is chosen. So, you know, we can't just do anything. So just, again, making sure that you're familiar with those things. Remember that as well, if you choose to study a topic, period of history or geographical region with students, then the period of history or geographical region studied must relate directly to French, Spanish or German speaking country. If you study this option of studying a topic, please also be sure to refer to the specification to check that, you know, what you're doing is suitable. It's less problematic with the text or the film, but you do need to make sure you get that sort of technical information correct. And really, whether to study a topic, a literary text, or a film is just a matter of choice for the teacher or the students. And I think some teachers like to discuss that with the students, and others just decide for them. So that is a matter for you in your centres. They all have equal validity in terms of the A level. So you know, the marks and so on are allocated in the same way. So the choice of topic, whatever, and you will know your students, and you will know your organisation. There may be topics, texts or films which teachers are already familiar with, and that might also influence your decision. You know, if you think you've got those things. And sometimes as well, you're looking for the things that are supported with, materials that you can purchase, activity packs and so on that you can buy. So there are, again, just make sure that although it may appear to be a free choice, you've kind of got to be able to deliver it, and so that deliverability and is important for you as well. It's also important, I think, to be clear that the essay on the chosen topic, text, or film is worth a significant proportion of the marks available for Unit 4. So it's 40 out of the 90 marks. So, almost half of the marks on that unit go on that. So whichever topic, text, or film is chosen, just make sure that you've given enough time and space and depth for students to study it. And of course, when we look at, for example, on Unit 4, the listening and the reading activities, those are differentiated. We've got multiple choice questions, we've got some easier questions, we've got some harder questions. But when the students produce their essay for section C, they're expected to operate at the ceiling, at the top of their ability, right the way through that essay. So all of that as well takes quite a lot of work and practice. On the subject website, you'll find all the past papers, so you can have a look at those things there. And if you look in the mark schemes for those past papers, we also include indicative content. And that they're not sample essays, but they are the sort of things that we're looking for students to say in answer to those questions. So that kind of gives you an idea of the level that we're working at. One other thing that I think is worth saying really and particularly for the literature and film, is that because this is not university level, this is school level, this is A-level standard, we're not expecting students to understand the film or the book in the context of, for example, an artistic movement or a literary movement, or the great sweep of history. Okay, so we're looking for that book or that film to be studied with sufficient cultural context to understand what's going on in it, but when they answer their questions, everything is focused on that book. And one of the things I think we sometimes find is that, we have something and they will talk about, this particular generation of writers, and it sometimes you think this has kind of gone a little bit away from the question. So just remember that's kind of at a university level. And what we're doing for A-level is very much focused within the topic, within the book, within the film. Okay, and you'll see that reflected in the question. And that's just a sort of an aside from me as a teacher and an examiner, to make it clear that the questions are on the question paper, and the indicative content that you see is the sort of thing that we might expect students to produce in answer to that question. Okay, but they're not sample answers as such. It's merely indicative content, and they could answer those things in a completely different way and equally validly, and equally for equally good marks. Okay, so if we just sort of think a little bit now about planning lessons, I think it's important that, once your scheme of work has been written, you then kind of get into the delivery part, don't you? And you need to be thinking about how you're going to plan the lesson. So the 4 main skills are, as they are in international GCSE: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And they need to practice all of those skills regularly. And a lot of this will depend on the length of your lessons in your centre. But in an hour's lesson, you might be able to practice all 4 skills, but in shorter lessons, you might not be able to do all of them quite so regularly. But I think we would advocate for all lessons really to cover at least 2 skills as far as we possibly can, so that we're making sure that that skills building is happening across the course. And we also would say that at this level, students can be expected to take on an increasing amount of responsibility for their own learning, and that will be very different at the beginning of year 12 from what you will see later on in year 13. So again, one of the things we want to do is to be ramping up the amount of independence that we expect our students to show. Nothing magical happens between the end of year 11 and over the summer now and going back into year 12. But through the course of that, it's useful to plan for increasing independence on their part as well. You'll also see from the specification that there are prescribed topics and prescribed grammatical structures to be studied. And that needs to be reflected in your lessons as well, with time dedicated to the study of both. Those grammatical structures, we do need students to be able to use the grammar of the language effectively. And of course, there are grammar tests there. So some of that grammar is specifically tested. Keep in mind as well that there can be a difference between productive language grammar, which is a little bit less than receptive language grammar. So sometimes what we see in reading and what we hear in listening might not quite reach the level that even the best students are able to produce in the productive skills. So we sort of accept that as well. And you'll also, I think, as you sort of start to plan your lessons, see that particular topics might sort of relate to particular structures and go. And so, when you talk about the sort of education and employment topic, we're kind of moving into things like future timeframes there, aren't we? Because they're not at work yet, but they will be in the future. And so we're maybe in those discussions, we might be looking at those things. And so I think, this is also true in many of those general topic areas for the A level, which is where we might be looking into more speculative language. If we talk about politics, you would maybe talk about things that might happen and could. And so there we might as well sort of balance those things into those languages. So have a think really about how you introduce the grammar and how you sort of relate that to the general topic areas and to the general teaching. A lot of it also needs to be quite holistic, and I think it's important as well just to be aware that although your students, if they're coming into year 12, we've probably done a GCSE level, sort of level 2 kind of qualification, international GCSE or GCSE. But it isn't a given that knowledge and grammar and vocabulary it is embedded and is a sort of starting point. And I think sometimes one of the things we find as we mark A-level essays is that it's the basics that almost the basic things can be missing, because if they just didn't quite understand that when you covered it in year 9, that there are sort of gaps there. So just sort of make sure that the grammar is solid. We're wanting good levels of comprehension, and we're also wanting good, appropriate levels of productive language. And that productive language, we need to sort of get a sense that there is linguistic control there, and that we're seeing that variety of grammatical structures in the things in particular when they do writing. So just to recap then, we're looking at the balance across the 4 skills. We're looking for that mix of teacher-centered and student-centered activity. And that, at the beginning of year 12, you will need to direct everything quite closely and only little bits of independence. But we think about how we build that independence. What we're looking for is by the end of year 13 that they are ready for university level study, and the levels of independence that will bring with it. Obviously, as they become more independent, it's your role moves from being a directive to being the person who is guarding it, who is checking it. You need to be making sure that they are doing the things that you've asked them to do. So even those independent activities, we raise the stakes because they have to do something and they have to come back into class and they have to demonstrate and sometimes stand up and present something in front of their classmates, or something that shows the work that they have done. And that's important, that we're making sure that there is accountability there as well, because one of the things that of course can happen is that you kind of get adrift. You will be assured that they have done the things that they're supposed to have done, and then actually it turns out sometimes that they haven't. Well, I can't talk for your students, but I've found that behavior on my own sometimes. So we're also then looking for that balance of topic-based work and grammar, linguistic structures, and also how you incorporate all of those things within the topic, and also just the looping back constantly, the constant revision as we build capacity. It's important at any point really for the students to be stretched appropriately to their ability, so that we're pushing everybody to the top of their ability. We're not wasting the time of the most able students by doing things that they can already do, and we're not overextending the students who are a bit weaker and putting them into sort of anxiety-inducing situations where they can't cope. So we're wanting to just keep them supported through. Very typically as well with these qualifications, the groups are small enough that you're able to do that, I think. Okay, now we're going to have a look now at some more technical information about the assessment, and we're going to talk to you a bit about the mark schemes as we go through. So first of all, let's just make sure that you are absolutely clear that we have assessment objectives. Okay, so when we design the specification, when we design the exams, there are certain things that we're looking to assess. There are certain things that we're looking to test, and we're going to have a look in a moment at those things. And we sometimes abbreviate that to AO, just so if it appears further down the line, AO, that AO is assessment objective. So the requirement that these are the requirements that students need to meet. So each assessment objective's got a unique focus. So it's targeted in the exams and balanced across. And assessment objectives are assessed individually or in combination. So, for example, when they write, we might be assessing the quality of their written language, the grammar, the vocabulary, etc., and also the content. So that's sort of where we talk about in combination. And I'll say a little bit more about the in combination bit, just to answer the questions about kind of accuracy of language in free response questions in the listening and reading sections as well as we go through. Okay. So just in sort of kind of schematically really then, so assessment objective 1 is understand and respond in speech and writing to spoken language. Okay, so we understand and we respond to spoken language in writing when we do the listening comprehension. They hear a recording and they write their answers. Okay, and we understand and respond to speech in spoken language, and that's the interaction and the spontaneity that we are seeing, the response to questions in the speaking part of the test. Okay, so that's the respond, understand, and respond. Okay, so it happens in speaking, okay, which is all about the kind of interaction. And when we talk about interaction, we're talking about, do they answer not just the question, but also the wider implications of the question? You know, do they lead the discussion? Those kinds of things. And it's listening comprehension. Assessment objective 2 is understand and respond in speech and writing to written language. Okay, so they understand and they respond to written language in writing in the reading comprehension, don't they? They read a text and they answer the questions. And they understand and respond to written language in speech, well, because in the AS speaking test, they have to read a card and they have to, in their preparation time, and then in their test, they have to talk about the content of that card. So we're getting that. And importantly, when they do their debate in Unit 3, they also need to refer to the sources of information that they have read. Okay, so that's important just to understand that that AO2, that's being assessed. There are marks available for that. AO3 really is the sort of easy one. It's show knowledge of and apply accurately the grammar and syntax prescribed in the specification. That's quality of language. So we all tend to sort of know what that is. And AO4 is respond critically to themes and ideas from selected topics, literary texts, or films. So AO4 is the one that's tested only in the A2, and it's, if you like, it's about the content of what they write in their section C essay. Okay, so if we have a look at what that looks like in numbers, we see you know, quite significant percentages of marks available for AO1 and AO2. AO3, well, actually, we're prioritizing the use of the language, aren't we? We're prioritizing the use of language. They're over the quality of language, so that's important. Actually, we got more marks for the practical application of the language than we have for the knowledge of grammar and syntax, but that is significant. But also notice that those quite significant numbers of marks really for that AO4, that responding critically to the themes and ideas. So that's really very much about the content of your teaching when you teach the topic, the literary text, or the film. Okay, now these AOs are also significant because I did mention, for example, in listening and reading comprehension, where maybe they have to write an answer in the target language to show comprehension. If that question is only targeted at AO2, it's a reading comprehension question, they won't lose marks for misspelling or slight grammatical mistakes in their answer, because if it's only targeted at AO2 and there aren't any marks for AO3, we don't have any reason to withhold marks for misspelling or anything. Okay, so just kind of, this is where, in terms of the sort of technical layout of the specification, it's important maybe just to understand things like that. So if it's only an AO2 question, we're not concerned with quality of language, for example, for that assessment objective. Okay. So here we go. Now, let's just have a look at the sort of relationships of the assessment objectives to international AS there. So you see there the different assessment objectives that we're looking at. Okay, so in Unit 1, you remember, is the speaking. So we're speaking and responding to the questions. So yes, we're doing that, and that's those questions on the card and also in the discussions. AO2, however, notice 3%. It's not a huge amount of marks, but it's significant, isn't it, if you don't get them? And that's for making sure that you've definitely talked about what it says on the card. Okay. AO3, of course, there are marks for quality of language, but notice that the big number of marks are for your response to spoken language in speech. Okay, it's all the interaction, the things that you talk about. Unit 2, we've got listening comprehension, we've got reading comprehension, and then AO3 is the grammar part. It's the question 8, and it's also the section C, the written part. And you sort of see those added up across the specification. No marks are available for AO4 with international A level. And that's really because the general topic areas are general, they're not culturally located. So, but roughly a third of the marks available in total for each of those assessment objectives. And we see a similar sort of thing happening here now for units 3 and 4, and you kind of get that look. So it's the AO4 that is new at A2. So we're getting in unit 3, we're wanting to see that we've got some content happening there, and that's we're wanting to see those things, and something related to the response. Okay, that's the response to the material, and also we're getting the AO2 there, which is because we're wanting students to reference the research sources that they've given. Anyway, they're not the most exciting things, but I think it's important just to be aware that there is a sort of layout of the design, and that will be consistent year on year. I think that's the important thing for teachers to be aware of, the consistency year on year, and the technical requirements are met, and all of that we think is what's helping to keep the overall demand, the overall level of the papers very comparable from one paper to another Okay. Now let's just move on, and we'll just sort of talk to you a little bit about question types, and so students are going to meet different types of questions in the exam, and we'll sort of see that a little bit on this slide as well. So there might be spoken questions. Of course, there will be spoken questions in the speaking. So they might be about straightforward comprehension. So questions 1 and 2 in the stimulus text on section A of unit 1. They do that. They ask you to talk about what the text says. But they might also ask students to analyze or to speculate or to give details or opinions. So we're dealing with those spoken questions. Then we're also dealing with multiple choice, gap fill, and short answer questions in the target language. So those are the questions for comprehension that we see in units 2 and units 4, sections A and B. And then we're also asking for a longer written response. So we're looking for essay response questions, and those are the things that are in section C of units 2 and 4. Okay, and so obviously as you're preparing your students, just keep in mind this big picture of the kinds of questions that they're going to need to deal with. And for each of those things, there are different strategies, and it's important, I think, for you to be in terms of kind of developing the metacognition of your students, to be training them to think about what their different strategies are for dealing with those kinds of questions. So, for spoken questions, make sure if the question is asking you about the text that you're referring to the text. For spoken questions, if you're being asked to analyze, that you're analyzing, but that you're also answering the question in a way that's developed, and that practice in developing your response can be important. When we talk about multiple choice, well, multiple choice might be not just choose the right answer, but eliminate the wrong ones. You might want to look with students about why the wrong answers are wrong, because the texts or audio might have elements of distraction in it, things that are mentioned there and are sort of hinted at, but might be the opposite in the question. So look at how all of those things work. Gap fill, when we're doing a gap fill question, we need to think about the grammar or the sense, which words could go into those boxes and which couldn't. We're talking about short answers in the target language. We need to practice making sure that what we are showing the examiners is reliable evidence of comprehension. So a short response that is a chunk of text transcribed or copied from the stimulus text in the hope that the answer is in there won't necessarily provide a clear and unambiguous response. It doesn't give us reliable evidence of comprehension, but a little lift from the text appropriately can do. So training your students with all of those things. And then in the longer written responses, to make sure that they are focusing on whichever of the assessment objectives are tested in that response. So it's not all about the content, it's also about showcasing the linguistic ability that you've got using that variety of grammatical structures, variety of lexis, and so on. Okay, we'll say a few more things about each of those things now in detail. So speaking questions, so just kind of, you know, what we're going to advise students to think about. Need to make sure that they understand the question, so that they're familiar with the interrogatives and how those are formed, because you're going to need to use a lot of those as well. And they also need to know how to recover if they don't understand. So we want them to know how to ask a question, ask for a question to be repeated. We also want them to learn how to develop their answers, to give details, examples, reasons, opinions, and so on. And you know, things like de Bono thinking hats as well, you know, can be very useful for developing those responses. So yes, no kind of answers are concerning and don't develop the discussion. We're looking for students actually to answer the wider implication of not just the question, but also the wider implication of it. So that element of springboarding is really important. We're looking also for students to demonstrate their research and knowledge on the subject by giving facts and figures and showing that you've read something. So again, for the best marks really in speaking and answering those questions, we're looking for good, pertinent exemplification and something that maybe just goes, which is evidence of learning, evidence of study. And so something that goes beyond the things that everybody in the street could know. So it moves from the straightforward, from the commonplace, into something that's a bit more perceptive and is giving that kind of evidence of study, evidence of learning. So again, the sort of thing that they might want to do is to have their kind of almost their sort of scrapbook of facts and figures, their portfolio, their personalized repertoire of information, of facts, of figures, of data that they are ready to give, and also trying to make sure that some of those things are reasonably up to date as well. So a few things really there about speaking questions and advice for students. Now we're going to have a look at multiple choice listening questions. Okay, so what advice can we give to students about multiple choice? So maybe the student hears the national airline has increased its capacity, going from 2 to 4 weekly flights in the month of March last year between Paris and the islands. And coming from Paris, there are now 2 flights per day, 2 flights per week, 4 flights per week, 4 flights per month. Okay, so let's look back. 2 to 4 weekly flights in the month of March. Okay, so the answer is C, isn't it? So the answer is 4 flights per week. Okay, but what we need to be careful of is that we are dealing with the elements of distraction. It's a very simple question for A-level, but we're dealing with the elements of distraction. So, you know, we've got quite a lot of work to do to find that answer, and you, of course, are doing that through the means of another language. Okay, so well, we've seen the 2 flights because we've got the word to is mentioned. So 2 flights, 2 to 4 weekly flights, and 4 flights per month, 2 to 4 weekly flights in the month of March. Okay, so you can see how elements of distraction are built in there. And what we find is that sometimes students, they have plenty of opportunity to listen, and they can listen several times. And again, just developing, if it's listening, that good habit of even if you think you've got the answer right the first time, just make sure that you've listened to it again and that you've checked, because being aware that that distraction is there is an important feature. Okay, so you know, this is kind of part of the processing of information that we're going to expect students to do. So, sort of thing you can do in class with students with some past papers and multiple choice is just to ask them to find the right answer and write down why the wrong answers are wrong. Because if they write down why the wrong answers are wrong, we are doing 2 things with multiple choice. We're not just choosing the right one, but we're also consciously eliminating the incorrect ones. And that's a metacognitive strategy that students can apply when they deal with those multiple choice questions. We also see gap fill questions, for example, in listening. So the student hears, the evidence jumps out at you. Global warming is transforming a good number of regions of the hexagon, and the hexagon equals is France. Okay, so, you know, in France, climate change affects a something region. Okay, and so what are we going to do? Okay, so many regions. Okay, a good number, all the regions. All is not correct, is it? All is not correct because it says a good number, but you see we've got that thing happening there. Okay, so just as you're getting students prepared to deal with questions like that, what's the strategy? Well, in the moment before they start listening, they need to think, what could go into that gap? Okay, what could go into that gap? And so all the is possible. Disregard the A. I think that was that's the letter of the you know, question A. It is. So all the could go. The affects often regions, not quite. Affects negative regions, doesn't seem right. Affects surprised regions, beneficial regions, happy regions, possibly. Many or rarely. Okay. So they need to think about the grammar and they need to think about the sense, and also those words with gap fills will only be used once. So again, it's a good strategy to use the ones that you're sure about. You know, find the ones that you're sure. If you're doubting about some of them, just consider, fill in as many as you can, look at what's left, cross out the ones that are left, and that will help you to narrow down your choice. So again, we're getting students to use that sort of metacognition really to target the way they answer the questions. Now, the candidate's going to also hear short answer listening questions. So, for example, candidate hears, there is no doubt that English is an important world language. However, we must remember that some schools do not provide even a third of the hours needed to teach the language, and also that not all teachers speak it as well as others. So what does the speaker doubt when it comes to the quality of English teaching? Give 2 details. Okay. Now, again, this question is something that requires students to process all of that information. Okay. Not enough teaching time, not all teachers speak it well. Okay. But one of the things they don't doubt is that English is an important world language. But the word doubt in the question is carried over into the second sentence by the word however. Okay, so again, just make sure that your students are aware that there is a level, this is international A level, there will be a level of sophistication there, and just spotting a word will not necessarily help you very much. Okay, so we need you to be targeting the correct answers there. And just again, if you want to work with your students on developing this element of kind of metacognition, when I have set exam papers and so on in the past, in a funny sort of way, you look for a way for them, you look to provide a way for the students to get it right and a way for them to get it wrong, because of course we're always trying to differentiate the best students from the middle ones, from the weaker ones. That's the overall aim of the assessment. So again, it's a really useful thing to do with students. Say, what's the examiner doing here to put you off the scent, to try and give you a way that you might get it right or get it wrong? What's the thinking that's going on here? Okay. So I think all of those things can be very useful for kind of developing that question answer targeting in your students. Okay. So let's just now think about answering comprehension questions. A bit of advice for students, so sort of about multiple choice and gap fill. So it's the things that I said: listen to the entire recording or read the entire text for each question in order to understand the gist of the text. So process the whole text. That's really important. Read the questions and possible answers very carefully. It's very easy to misread a question. And again, if you see those behaviors happening in your students, you need to provide them with the strategy to read the question effectively. So it maybe mean that they translate the question into their own language, or that they circle the interrogative, or whatever it is they do. If you see that behavior happening, you need to jump on that behavior as well. And that can be individualized in terms of your students. Listen to the recording, read the text very carefully before they choose their answer, so not jumping to conclusions. And if you change your mind, indicate the answer you've chosen as correct, and very clearly as well. And I think this is also quite important for a bit of advice really for students, because remember that these exams now are scanned and they're marked by examiners online. So a student who just crosses out their answer and then writes it at the bottom of the page, they run a risk that that answer is not seen by the examiner, because the examiner marks in a clip. Obviously, if they write their answer and they put see bottom of page or a little arrow pointing down, that gives the examiner a clue that the answer might be somewhere else. Okay, so all of that is important for them to understand. Sometimes students have these behaviors that obviously the examiner can only mark your answer if they can see it and you've indicated. So you have that really that opportunity to communicate with the examiner. So if you have students who do change their mind and do a lot of crossing out and changing and so on, try to encourage them to have a behavior that means that the examiner will be able to see clearly what their intended answer is and mark it. And that will vary a little bit from student to student, of course. Again, advice for students when they answer short answer questions. Listen to the entire recording for each question in order to understand the gist of the text. Read the questions carefully and make sure you're answering the question that's being asked. If there are 2 marks for a question, write one idea clearly on each line, because always when it's a 2-mark question, there'll be plenty of writing space. Sometimes it's even worth doing them with bullet points. Again, communicate clearly with the examiner. If it's a 2-mark question, the examiner will read it. If you've written both of your answers in a full set in a single sentence, that's okay. But really, the best practice is to make it absolutely clear, and 2 marks, 2 details. You can use words and phrases from the text in your answer, but don't copy indiscriminately. And remember the thing I said, we're looking for reliable evidence of comprehension. So, you know, a candidate who answers the question clearly and concisely, even if there's a little spelling mistake or something, will get the mark because you've communicated effectively with the examiner. On the other hand, a candidate who copies a chunk out of the text, hoping the answer might be in there, and leaves the examiner doubting whether they've understood or not, will probably not get that mark. And that's about being fair, of course, to all candidates everywhere. Check as well what you've written, and just also make sure that your language is as accurate as possible. Although you won't be getting marks removed because you make mistakes with the language, it's important that it communicates accurately as possible. Okay, so watch out as well. It encourages students to watch out for things like where we've heard a first-person speaker, but we get a third-person question, that kind of thing. And then answering their essay questions, again, same thing really. We want you to make sure that they have read the question carefully and that they've ensured that they answered it. So it's a good idea to write a little plan, and write a plan and cross it out. It's absolutely fine, but planning is good. So for the Unit 2 essay, it's important that students remember to answer every bullet point. And for Unit 4, they need to remember that they're being tested on both knowledge of the topics and text of the film, and also their ability to respond critically to the themes and ideas from that topic. So it's knowledge and understanding, knowledge and critical response. And I think again, particularly when they do literature or they do films, we want them to be answering the question. We don't need to know things about biography of the writer or anything like that. Those catch-all paragraphs at the beginning don't help answer the question. And also, you can assume that the examiner knows the book or the film. So make points, give evidence and give evaluation, but don't retell the story. The examiner will know the story. We don't need you to prove that you've read the book or seen the film. So just moving on now, just to sort of have a think about mark schemes. Now, the mark schemes work in sort of several different ways. And so we have these objective mark schemes. So where we've got multiple choice type questions or gap fill questions, there will be one correct answer. So those are clear, straightforward, easy to mark questions. Where we've got those words where they use a gap fill and they have to fill in a word from the box, you know, you can see in French that 3 of those options have got an accent on them. They would still get the mark if they write the word, they copy the word without the accent and that sort of thing. So provided it's clear that is the word for then, you know, if they happen to have put an E on the end of normal or something, that would be okay. We would accept that. It's better if they copy it correctly, but if they make those little errors, those marks are still going to be okay. It's not a test of spelling, so if they make a little mistake, that's ignored. Now, when we have a look at the questions where they provide short answers to the questions, it's important, I think, for you just to understand that the mark schemes that we provide are indicative. They're never inclusive. So the answer we're looking for is given. That's the answer that we've planned for students to give in answer to that question. Sometimes there's something also that they answer it in a different way and it's acceptable. And there may also be something that we reject. But just keep in mind that those are just indicative answers. So they could express things in a different way. And that could be equally valid for a mark or equally invalid and equally rejected. So keep coming back to what I said about we're looking for reliable evidence of comprehension. So you look at the question, you look at the text, and if their answer appears to answer the question according to what the text has said, and you think that's worth a mark, that mark will be given. Okay, so that's an important feature, and also the fact that we're not concerned with spelling, punctuation, grammar in response to those questions, provided the answer that the candidate has given is sufficiently clear for us to understand it. And it's the clarity really that we're looking for. I keep saying it again, reliable evidence of comprehension. If we've got reliable evidence of comprehension, we can give the mark. With part of the marking principles for Pearson for all of our qualifications are around positive marking. So if there's a little benefit of the doubt, we tend to give the benefit of the doubt, and examiners are instructed to mark positively. We're looking to give the marks as far as we possibly can. We're not looking for reasons to withhold them. But that said, and within that sort of context, of course, we've got to be really fair to all candidates. So we don't give away marks for nothing, but we are looking to mark positively. Okay. So let's have a look at, so those are what we would call the points-based mark schemes. Those are the mark schemes where it's 1 or 2 marks for each question. Okay, and we also use what we would call levels-based mark schemes. So these are a bit different, and these work on a sort of a descriptor. And so if you have a look at, this is a levels-based mark scheme for Unit 1 for the quality of language, the range of lexis. Mark schemes in a part of AO3. So our mark schemes always start with 0 and they go downwards. And I know if you're used to some other awarding organizations, they might go the opposite way, but we always start at the bottom. And so the best mark is always at the bottom of the list. So for 5 marks, it says a wide range of lexis and good variety of complex structures with only occasional limitation. And the thing that we're sort of tending to see in the design of the mark schemes is that those qualifying words will tend to be the thing that drive the mark scheme. So we've got wide range of lexis. At 4, it's a good range of lexis. 3, adequate range of lexis. 2, lexis restricted, and 1, very basic lexis. Okay, and within those grids, there may be 2 different criteria that we are looking for. So when you're aiming to practice, marking, assessing your students, and you're using those grids, be aware of those qualifying words. Those are important. And remember as well that when we apply those mark schemes, we look for the best fit. Okay, so in that, you might say, okay, well, what are we going to give a 4 for here? Well, if there's a good range of lexis, but we've got only not quite as many examples of more complex structures as we think we should have, we can still give a 4. And so those descriptors, we choose the best fit rather than the exact descriptor. So you might, sometimes there might be a little element of one of those descriptors that you think, I'm a bit doubtful about that. But if everything else seems to fit, examiners will mark positively and they will apply that best fit idea to the mark scheme. And if you have a look on the website as well, and we haven't sort of talked much about examiners' reports, but you will find there are reports by examiners on previous exams, and that will give you some useful information again about the sort of levels of demand, levels of expectation. Keep in mind always the level of requirement of this qualification. We're not talking about university level here, but we are talking about something beyond GCSE. Okay, and it's important to a wide range of lexis with a good variety of complex structures with only occasional limitation. That still is a second. This is still a second language qualification, and they're not at university, so it's appropriate for the level of the qualification. So if you look at the website and you look at some of the exemplars, and you kind of look at those and get a sense for what the level it is in the context of these descriptors and these mark schemes. In the mark schemes, I mentioned as well to you that there is indicative content for the topics for section C on unit 4. So the indicative content will look like that. So we've got some ideas of the things that candidates might write about, and they're given that indicative content. And they can, in the real one, this is translated into English, so in the real ones, it will be in the target language. So working through that indicative content, looking at that indicative content from past papers and so on, again, will provide you with a good guide, if you like, to how we are marking these and the level of demand and requirements that we have for those essays. Okay, so again, have a look at the indicative content. It's also sometimes worth having a look at the indicative content for the books and films, for example, that you're not studying, because sometimes they again can be informative in terms of the kind of questions that you might be going to have to deal with with your students. Okay. But getting the level right is really important. I mentioned as well, with the book or the film particularly, that it remains, it's contained within that book or that film. When we do the history topic or the geographical region, it's fairly obvious how a period of history is contained, isn't it? Because if it's, we're talking about Spain between 1970 and 1980, that's contained. And if we're talking about a geographical region, that's contained. It has a sort of boundary. And we need to apply that same approach really to the book or the film that we study. If we're choosing to study a book or a film, it's contained within that. So we need to know a little bit about the author and the director, and we maybe need to know a little bit about the cultural and historical backdrop in order to understand the film. But the questions will be based very much on the content of the film, evaluating the content of the film, but not looking at that film or that book as part of a sort of artistic movement or anything like that. And that again is an indicator that this is an A-level qualification. We're not looking at a sort of university level response here for those qualifications, if that makes sense. So just we can have a sort of have a bit of a think about the mark schemes, just make sure that you've got copies of the material from the website, that you've downloaded that. You've got, remember that we've got examples of units 1, 2, 3, and 4, sample assessment papers. Make sure you've had a look at all of those. Get those alongside the mark schemes, and also have a look at the commentaries that are available. And I'm going to give you a little break now. We're going to get you to have a look at those. If you would like to spend, we're just going to probably give you about 10 minutes. We'll come back at 10:45, and it will give you an opportunity just to have a look at the website again. If you need to have a little comfort break, do that, but just familiarize yourself with where everything is. And I'm going to stop talking now, and I'll see you back at 10:45. Okay, we're going to come back together now and press on. I had a question that appeared from Nadia, I think, in the chat about the marks available for each section of each paper, and I mentioned that 40 out of the 90 marks were available on that unit 4 paper for the response to the essay, and then there isn't a consistent number of marks, I'm afraid, on each paper. So you have a look on at the specification and in the sample assessment materials, and you'll be able to sort of see those things, and to see that kind of mark breakdown. I hope you've maybe also had an opportunity to have a look at the sample assessment and at the specification and the materials that are on the website. Keep in mind as well, the website will keep building all the time, so we keep getting more and more things available on the website as the series go ahead. But the specification has been around for a little while now, and so we are in quite a fortunate position to have lots of past paper material available for you to work with your students as well. So that's always an advantage of a specification that's been around for a little while. So in terms of kind of advice to yourselves in making sure that you're ready, do please make sure you need to put in some time really to read the specification. And I think read in detail as well. Even if you think you know the spec very well, we can all be making assumptions sometimes. So I think it's worth a read through, and also to look at some of the parts of the specification that you may not look at very much again in the future, and the things about transferable skills and so on, because those are important things sometimes to make sure that at whole school level you are doing those things. You can also, and we mentioned the transparency really about sharing the mark grids and the schemes and so on with the students. Everything that is part of the specification is put into the public domain. With the one, I suppose, proviso that usually the most recent exam papers are locked, or the exam papers from the past year are locked, and so if you don't have the key code to unlock that, your exams officer, it's not high-level security, but your exams officer can provide you with that key code, and you will be able to log in and get those papers and those mark schemes, but your students won't necessarily be able to see them and use them. And I think the idea there is that you can use the past papers as a secure mock exam for your students, and that they can't sort of get in and find the answers before they they sit the exam and so on. So that's the one proviso. But for teachers, everything will go out into the public domain. And we would really encourage you to show your students the website, to show them the material that's available, because we are looking for them to be developing their independence as learners. And so if we can be showing them those things, if we can be giving them those tools, if you like, to use that independence, that's an important one to work on. And it's useful for them sometimes to read examiners' reports and so on, and particularly when they're getting into the A2, the year 13 students, there will be things there that are important to them, and so that's part of the active learning approach that they can be taking. We would encourage that. Make sure as well that your students have practiced plenty of past papers and that they've done them in timed conditions. And you might want to sometimes do those things as a walking, talking mock exam as well, where we extend the amount of time, but we're just going to focus on one particular question. Now I'm going to talk you through the strategies for this question. We're going to annotate the question. We're going to think about how that question works. We're going to plan how we're going to answer that question. And then now we give you the opportunity to have a go at answering it. So that practice of using the timed conditions, practice of working with the time, but also the practice of what skills, what strategies students are going to apply to each question type, again, is a useful thing to be walking them through and making sure that they are prepared for that, because everything is there transparently and in the public domain, but actually sometimes they need to be pointed in the direction of it. Please also do make sure that they are adept with the listening material, and that they have that, because I know sometimes in class we sort of play the listening kind of on our own laptop or whatever, and you listen as a group, and we kind of do it in that way. But actually in the real exam, of course, students will have individual access to the recording. They can play it backwards and forwards as many times as they want to. And again, it's just useful to make sure that they've had practice at doing that. And it's practice with things like noting down the time marker when a particular answer comes, because they might say, actually that comes at 1 minute 34 seconds. So if I'm moving my recording backwards and forwards, I know where to go to the next answer will come after the 1 minute 34 seconds. So things like that as well can give them a little bit of extra time in the exam if they're adept at doing it. But it's not the sort of thing they will always quite think about. The next thing really is about all of the things that I said about communicating effectively with the examiners. It's really important that they see this exam as a means of not just answering the questions, but actually communicating effectively with the examiners. In the speaking, important that your recording is clear and effective, and that you're using the right kind of recording format and device. You will need to get all those things right. But when they're producing written answers, they need to write legibly. I know when I've been principal examiner for some of these papers, that other examiners will, on the system, you can escalate the problem. If there's a problem with legibility of handwriting, it gets sent to me as the principal examiner. But principal examiners even, we don't have any kind of X-ray vision. So what we do need is for students to be very careful that they write legibly. If you have a candidate who isn't doing that, then maybe we need to think about what support is put in place well in advance, because they get one opportunity, don't they, to answer these questions and to communicate with the examiner. And so it's important that handwriting is legible, of a reasonable size, and so on. And so we need to just be making sure that those behaviours, if they are evident in any of our students in advance of the exam, that we're kind of taking the steps to deal with that. The other thing really is about making sure that students follow the instructions for each question carefully. I mean, Pearson has our qualifications have big advantages in this regard, because of course we have a consistent approach year on year and consistent set of strategies, and so those instructions will be consistent. But it is important that they really do follow those instructions carefully. So if it's a multiple choice question, we've only marked one correct answer. If they change their mind, it tells you on the front of the exam paper how you change your mind and what you do, and that they know that they will do that. I mentioned as well that when we have a 2-mark free response question, it says give 2 details. They give 2 details, but not 3. And so if it asks for 2 details, give 2 details. If you give 3 details, one of the things that we do as markers is that we mark the first 2. So you might have found 3 things to say, and if the first 2 happen to be correct, you'll get those 2 marks. But if the first one is incorrect and the second 2 are correct, you're only going to get 1 mark. So even at that sort of level, 1 mark, 1 detail. So just following those instructions really carefully. When they do the writing tasks, where there's bullet point guidance in Unit 2, they need to see those bullet points as essential to task completion. So we want them to follow that guidance absolutely to the letter. If they're given guidance about the number of words, the word count, well, of course, examiners mark whatever candidates write. But again, just making sure that that guidance is broadly followed, because a candidate, when they do an essay, if they write too much, they tend to make more mistakes, and they tend to include information that's not relevant to the answer. If they write too little, they haven't demonstrated perhaps the range of language they need to, and maybe they haven't covered the range of content that they need to. And I think they need to be mindful as well of the amount of time that they have to deal with each of these tasks to do the task justice. And so if you're writing an essay and you have an hour to write an essay, if you can write 1,000 words, that's unlikely to be a very focused essay. That will just be something that is probably ill-considered and is regurgitating memorized information. So we're wanting the answers to be targeted. If they're having an hour to write, they need some time to plan, they need some time to write, and they need some time to check. And that is the sort of basis really for the kind of recommended number of words that we would ask students to write. And so it's a good idea for them to broadly work to that. A little bit more, a little bit less is absolutely fine. Examiners will mark whatever is produced. We don't go counting words. They don't need to count the words either. But if they're aiming for I don't know, 350 words, and they think I write about 10 words per line, we want about 35 lines of writing. Okay, so all of that kind of thing of targeting the exam is really what gives the assessment reliability from the point of the student. So we really rely on the students to follow the instructions carefully. And indeed, when the teachers conduct the speaking tests, we rely on the teachers to conduct those tests correctly, technically correctly, and that's what will tend to give the best outcomes. Now, I'm going to talk to you now in the sort of kind of closing comments that I'm going to make in the next sort of half hour or so about support and so on that we can offer you and give you with this qualification. And then we'll open up the discussion, and if you have any questions, queries that you would like to raise, I'll do my best to answer them, and if I can't, I can certainly point you in the direction of where you can find those answers. In terms of what we're doing really with Pearson, we're aiming to support you at each stage of your delivery of the qualification. So you hopefully had a little opportunity in the break just to have a refresh, just to have a look at the website. But do please make sure you're very familiar with that website and that web page, and it is your sort of go-to page. And also keep checking it, because we are kind of adding material in all the time. So in those course materials, all of those menus there, you will find the specification and sample assessment materials. You've got exam materials. I don't know when that screenshot was taken, but look, already 189 different items within those exam materials. Lots and lots of material is there for you. You'll find the forms and administration, and also the teaching and learning materials. There's also some access to past training content. So in the website, you've got the specification, which is your go-to document, really. All of those past papers, and you see I mentioned about the fact that some of them are locked, and you can get the sort of padlock. You can get the key from your exams officer. They can give you access, but the students don't necessarily get it. But further down in papers going further back into the past, the students will have access to papers. So there are some that they can work with. You have a range of teaching and learning materials. So the exemplar material, there are teaching guides. There's past training content as well. So this training event that we do today will probably land there into the past training content. But we're constantly adding to that bank of material. So if there's a particular training course, it's really nice if you join live like you are today. But if you're not able to do that, you should be able to find the content of those training events. And you can also use that sections of that with your students as well, if you'd like to. You'll find the scheme of work, which is a sample scheme of work. It's a suggested scheme of work, but you might find that useful. There's information about skills for learning and work, and also a big teacher support section. Okay, so that's there in the teaching and learning materials. And then, as I said, the past training content is there, and we're constantly adding material in there. Again, if you're not, if you already use Pearson, you will know about this. But if you're not, it's a useful feature. Obviously, now all of the marking is done remotely by examiners, and on screen, and nobody sits with an exam paper and a red pen anymore like we used to. Everything is marked on screen, and what it does is that as those marks are inputted into the system, it means that we gather a rich seam of data in the background, and so we're able to provide you with all sorts of different kind of services that are related to that. So one of these is Results Plus, and Results Plus provides a detailed analysis of your learners' performance. We'll have a look at it schematically in a moment. So it means that you can identify potential topics, skills, and types of question where students might need to develop their learning further. You can see where they're doing well and where they're not doing so well. You can also see actual scores for each exam question for a student, a class, or a group. So you can look at individual students at your class and year group if you like. And it helps you to understand your students' performance and how it compares with the class and Pearson Edexcel national averages. So you can compare your students with the whole cohort of students who took that particular exam. And it gives you that sort of data that enables you to, support effective teaching and learning approaches. So I'd recommend after each series that you really sort of try to use Results Plus, because that analysis is very useful, I think, in terms of thinking, well, actually, look, it was the AO1 on something where the mark didn't seem to be quite so good. What's happening here? Is there something that we need to be focusing on a bit more in the teaching and so on? So all of those things there, we'd recommend we kind of direct you to Results Plus, and that's a free to use service. You don't pay for that. That's part and parcel of being within Pearson. So yes, I mean it sort of works like this. The student takes the exam papers. The papers are scanned. They're marked online, and then we have those performance reports which are shared. And I think that again, very much sort of worth understanding that that is there, and that system gives you that sort of rich sort of seam of data that you can use with you. So it's very interesting as well when you compare them with the wider picture. Now, Exam Wizard is not available for every qualification, and I think probably the one we're talking about today is not going to be available on Exam Wizard, but some of you may be teaching other specifications or other subjects. So just to tell you what it is, and it's a more perhaps a thing that you would be kind of recommended in the staff room to people who are working on different subjects. But anyway, look, it's all of the past paper content is pulled together and categorized, and it means that if you want to find a particular question on a particular topic and make an exam paper out of that, you're able to find those things, and you can pull together and export those free of charge into an exam paper. But I'm not sure that the specifications we're talking about today are supported by Exam Wizard. And that's something we're working on, but I don't think we're quite there yet. So access to scripts then, just in much the same way you have that Results Plus access, you also can access your candidates' scripts online, and that's included as part of your qualification fee, so you don't pay extra to have a look at that. You can download the candidates' marked scripts as a PDF. So it's interesting, I think, for us as teachers, because you give all this advice to students about how they should be, doing the plan for their essay and all of that sort of thing. But you never actually know from in the actual exam whether they actually do it. So do kind of keep in mind that access to scripts. It's a useful way to see the kind of exam behaviors of your students and whether they are actually applying the strategies that are required for that exam in that way. Okay, so just remember that you can do that. Okay. Now, a couple of things really about some of the other resources. There's a sort of, in terms of paid for resource. So there are teachers packs, teachers resource packs for French, German and Spanish. You're not ever required with Pearson qualifications to use Pearson published resources, but they are there. They are available to you. And they're written for the specifications specifically. They're appropriate to the international content, and the language is also kind of specialist reviewed so that we make sure we have the right sort of level of demand there for those resources. I mentioned as well that there are now lots and lots of past papers that you can use, and of course any other textbooks or materials sort of that are appropriate for A-level may also be appropriate for these qualifications. The national A-level has textbooks, actual textbooks available, and although the content may be a little bit different in certain formats, and the topics vary a little bit. Again, those can be useful resources if you're interested to have a look. And if you're in a school, an international school, your regional development management your regional development manager, your local team will be able to point you in the direction of those things. I'm going to sort of just talk to you now a little bit about kind of your subject support advisor. So, you know, we provide these training events online. You've got also a dedicated subject support advisor. So that's Rebecca Waker, and that's a picture of Rebecca there. And so really any kind of queries that you have about anything you kind of need to know, and anything after the event today, and you think, I wish I'd asked about that, but the time has gone, do contact Rebecca, and you can contact her on teachinglanguages@pearson.com, and Rebecca or a member of her team will get back to you and hopefully be able to answer your question. If you want to phone as well, I mean, it's +44 for UK number, but the phone number is there, and the lines are open 9 till 5 UK time. So again, you can pick up the phone and make the inquiry as well. So where the question is a technical question, she will also be able to direct you to the right person, put you through to somebody who can help you. And there's a team of people as well, a team of support people there. So they are very good, and they will get back to you. So I would sort of recommend that you make sure you kind of keep that in mind. That phone number and that email address are on the website as well. And you can also sign up for regular updates from your subject advisor. And so there's qualification news and so on there. So again, through the website, you can sign up for the updates. Okay. Now we've moved quite quickly and smartly through the session today, but I'm going to just pick up on a few questions. I see things appearing in the chat, so I'll answer those as far as I possibly can now. And then as we go through, if you've got further questions, we'll try and pick up on those. As I say, if I can't, then I will. You can certainly contact Rebecca. So Nadia is asking, are we able to use the A-level course book for the international A-level as there's no textbook available? Nadia, yes, you absolutely can in terms of content. Just be careful that some of the topics are a little different, but the level of language is correct. So don't be worried about using that or any other published resources that are available. Just make sure that as we get towards the part where we're dealing with the exam and the assessment, that you're focused on the past papers mainly, which would be your better guide to assessment. And then where is the best place to find lessons available for the course? I think there's all sorts of things on TES as well that will be available, and I can't tell you what's there, but it really there's lots and lots of material out there. Again, if you want to contact teachinglanguages@pearson.com, Rebecca may have a list of websites and places that you could go. The A-level, and then also 3, the A-level course book coincides with international A-level course. However, the topics are all in a different order to the general topic areas. It's still possible to use. Yeah, I mean, as long as you cover the material ahead of the assessments that they need to do, yes, that's absolutely fine. And you have absolute freedom to deliver in whatever way you'd like to deliver that. Maliki says, is there a deadline to request scripts? I think you will need to request scripts before the last date for inquiries about results. So normally, if there's an inquiry about a result, so which is, we used to call it a remark, but it's now a review of marking. If you're going to ask for that, there's a deadline. So for the summer series, it's October half term, and I think for the winter series, probably February half term, and you can get them before then. But there is no reason why you don't just automatically request all of them. You don't need to pay for it. So those scripts are just available, and you could just have them and have a look anyway. And Nadia's asking about what's included in the resource pack other than past paper. There's a range of resources, but I can't reel off a list, unfortunately. If you have a look on the website, on the web page that I think there are samples there of what's available. But the past papers are things that come from the website, so the resource pack is separate. So Fidel says, please, maybe I have missed this. Can you kindly share with us again the link to the site where we can download materials related to the specification and scheme of work? Okay, so specification and scheme of work. Yes, I'll take you back. Let's just have a look back. So you need to go there, and so if you oh no, not there. Let's go back a little bit further. So you need to go to the website there. So if you simply search for International Advanced Pearson International Advanced A-Level French 2000 or Spanish or German 2016, you will find it. And it should be www.pearson.com and Pearson qualification. So you should be able to find it there. It would actually, next time I will make sure we put the actual link there, but that's what the page will look like. So you should find it. I'm a little bit wary of that. Nadia's asking about where you can find the exact exam dates. Your exams officer will, the timetable for exams is always published, and your exams officer should have those dates. On the speaking exams, the website, the web page that you're looking at there will also have the list of when the exam window is for speaking exams for the next speaking exams. Okay, so let's just have a look. So also, if the course is modular, not linear, does that mean they can resit at any time? Yes, that's right. Yes, we once you're happy that at the end of it they've got on each paper the number of marks they need to get the qualification, then you cash it in. Yes, that's right. Would it be possible for an international A-level student, if prepared, to sit the exam in advance in January? Yes, that's absolutely fine. Yes, they can sit it whenever they're ready, and they can resit a paper if they need to. And actually, yes, sometimes if you've got a very able student, or you've got a sort of semi-native speaker student who is ready to do it in the January, sometimes that's a good thing for them, because they may be doing other subjects that they can concentrate on more for the June series. Yeah. Okay. Let's whiz forward. Okay. Well, everybody, I'm pleased to say we've sort of got through a little bit sooner than the time we were planning to. I'm happy to answer any further questions if you have any. But thank you very much for being with us today. And if you're new to Pearson, we wish you good luck with the specification. We hope as well that it's cleared up some some queries that you may have. And we'll look forward to seeing you on future events in future. Well, good luck with everything. Thank you, and thanks very much for your time this morning. Okay.